I'm not worthy of an introduction like this, but thank you very much for having me here. It's an absolute pleasure. I'm not going to bore you with my life story, because I want to talk about the substance, but very briefly, like Jaroslav said, I'm the Director of Marketing and Growth at 3D Hubs. We're an online manufacturing platform. Essentially, we allow engineers and companies making really revolutionary products, from self-driving cars to prosthetics for Paralympian athletes to exoskeleton suits. We allow them to essentially create their designs, upload them onto our platform, and have them manufactured much faster and much more efficiently than traditional factories do. And we raised about 20 million recently, opened offices in the United States, offices to come in Germany and France as well. And I've been doing various forms of marketing for the better part of about 10 years. Started in the agency world, moved into consultancy. From consultancy, I moved into working for Growth Tribe, which is a big training company. Does anyone here know Growth Tribe? Okay, nice. Yeah, so I was the first lead trainer and growth marketer there. And since then, I moved on to be the CMO at Recruitee, which was a SaaS company. Does anyone know Recruitee? Yes, this is my guy. Yeah, and then we grew that 500% in 2 years on a bootstrap budget, no funding at all. And then recently, I moved to 3D Hubs, where I'm trying to build a team of 20 growth marketers to bring us to unicorn status. Today, what I'm going to be talking about is how to master product growth. I just want to get an idea. I did this yesterday already. If you were at my workshop yesterday, there will be a little bit of repetition at the beginning, usual introduction stuff. But just to get an idea, who here is a marketer? Nice. Who here is a product person? Who here is both? Yes. Very good. Very good. Before I go into it all, I'm not going to do any self-promotion. I know that none of you are going to use the products I've worked for, but if you ever want to see what I do, you can check out my website. You can add me on LinkedIn. I try to answer questions as much as possible. You can also ask me questions throughout the day. But let's dive straight into it. Why do we want to grow through our product? Why is this so important? Why has this emerged as a key factor in growth in the last 10 years? And I want to start with touching upon the definition of growth. Now, yesterday at the workshop, I was asking people, how do you define growth? And we had lots of great definitions popping up. Now, the thing is, growth is really hard to define. I remember when I first turned up at Recruitee and my title was head of growth, people were like, what the hell is your job? Are you the CEO? I was like, no. So I had to start thinking about, how do you define this in a way that it applies to every company? Because every company does this completely differently. And I came up with this definition over here, that there are 3 things that constitute growth. Now, some of you might be doing some of these things, some of you might be doing all of these things, but ultimately, if you look at it on a holistic level, this is how I would define it. It's a combination of customer acquisition, branding, and product growth. And I think if you can pull these 3 things together in a coherent strategy, bridging the new school growth marketing tactics with the old school knowledge on behavioral psychology and user experience, you can develop something quite amazing. And as I said yesterday, it can be quite complex. You know, customer acquisition is not one thing. If you do paid ads, you're in customer acquisition. If you do SEO, you're in customer acquisition. If you do lead nurturing, marketing automation, email marketing, all of this stuff falls into the customer acquisition space. If you work in branding, this is a whole different space altogether. And this is one of my challenges. In the past, I've had to manage almost 20 people. And I always envy the people in sales, because you can measure salespeople against each other. They all have the same targets, the same kind of job. But in marketing, it's so diverse. I have developers on my team. I have designers on my team. I have growth marketers, SEO specialists. So branding is everything that's really the story of your company. Think about what makes your company what it is. How do you radiate that throughout the market? And then finally, product growth. And this is what we're going to talk about today. And product growth is really a whole range of things. It's something that can be very specifically defined if you listen to people like Guillaume Cabane, and it can be something that's quite broadly defined if you look at a few other companies. Now, in some companies, you'll see this quite separated. You'll have the experimenters, and you'll have the ones who build the campaigns, and the experimenters test and send the successful experiments to the campaigns. What we try to do at 3D Hubs, and what we did at Recruitee, is create something much more holistic, where the people testing are also the people executing, where we actually work very closely together between these 3 departments to achieve these goals. Because at the end of the day, there's a big difference between what I would call traction and what I would call growth. If you're trying to get the first 100 users onto your platform, that's great. Try all the hacky stuff. Try getting, scraping lists, cold outreach, try all the little hacks that you've seen around. You'll get some traction. But if somebody knocks on your door and says, let's build a billion-dollar company, this is not going to be enough. You're going to have to think about, how do I build a holistic, long-term growth strategy? And we live in a world, just to get an idea, who here works with a digital product? Most of you. So in a digital world, product becomes more and more important because it's intertwined with data. Data is the new oil. This is incredibly vital. So if you want to grow a company sustainably, you have to start from the product. So what is product growth? Well, I've already shown you this. It's everything from user experience to user activation. It's product marketing and communications. It's engineering. It's building alternative features and tools to drive growth to your product. It's product referrals. And I'm going to touch upon a sporadic set of things that you can do to leverage your product for further growth. And I want to start with this quote by Brian Eisenberg, which is that our jobs as marketers is basically to figure out how the user wants to buy, or how the customer wants to buy, and help them do it. I really love this quote because it puts the emphasis not on only selling something. We all see you. I'm just kidding. It not only puts the emphasis on selling the product in a good way, it also puts the emphasis on building the product that people want to buy. And this really stems from the lean movement, that you do this validation and testing, constant iterations. It's not just, I have a finished product, let's send it out. When I first started in marketing in Budapest, that's how it was. It was, here's a product, sell it. And if the product sucked, you just had to make it sound like it didn't suck. That's different in today's world because, first of all, most products still suck, unfortunately, but if you build a great product, you already have a huge advantage. Because if you're working with software, with users, where retention is important, if retention is vital, then the quality of your product is everything. Because you can acquire 1,000 new customers tomorrow. If they all churn within a month, you're kind of screwed. And at Recruitee, we always had this one holy grail metric, which was negative churn. We wanted our upgrades to outweigh, in terms of revenue, our churn, our attrition, which meant that we could have stopped marketing one day to the next, and we would have still grown 1 or 2% per month because of the subscription-based model. And if you want to do product-driven growth, the most important thing is that you understand the user. I asked this question yesterday already, but I'm going to do it again. Who talks to their user at least once a week? You should talk to your user all the time. And not just your users, talk to your leads, talk to the people who don't choose you. Try to understand how they think, how they decide, how they make these decisions. So has everyone seen this before? I'm not going to cover this again, right? This is the customer acquisition journey, or if you want to call it the growth funnel, pirate funnel. So if you want to look at this, it's very simple. You become aware of a product, you become a user of the product, you get activated, you get the wow moment, the aha moment, you keep using the product, so you have retention, you spend money, so you drive revenue, and finally you refer others. Now, product growth is mainly going to affect this part of the funnel here. That's what we're going to be focusing on in this talk. One thing that's very important is that growth is something that has to be holistic. In my opinion, I don't like it when companies silo different departments and keep them away from each other. I don't like it when sales and marketing are fighting or product and marketing are fighting. It happens a lot in a lot of companies. The truth is, if your responsibility is to grow the business, you need to understand that also everyone in the company's job is to grow the business. No one's there on charity, you know? Everyone's trying to grow this business. And if your customer support and customer success aren't pulling their weight, you're going to see problems with retention and churn. If your sales aren't pulling their weight, you're going to see problems with revenue. And it's really important to see that, especially when you look at activation, every department is involved in that. And if you don't work together to fix these problems, you might end up in this problem where we're all sitting in our little silos trying to optimize what we can. And I've seen a lot of companies where they're trying to micro-optimize something in marketing when, in fact, customer success was the big problem. So you have to talk to the different departments. It's really important. Putting product at the center means working with other departments to achieve your goals. Because the customer decision-making journey is always the same. We all make decisions the same way. We engage with a brand, we become aware of the pain, we start exploring solutions for this pain. But what we didn't talk about yesterday, what I want to go a bit deeper in, is this stage here. Once you've convinced your manager to choose a product, or once you've convinced yourself to buy a pair of shoes, whatever it is you're buying, you have to adopt this product. If you buy shoes and you never wear them, you're probably not going to buy shoes from that brand again. You need to make sure that you're actually retaining, that you keep going back to that company, that you keep coming back, and you want the user to come back and keep buying your product, or keep paying, if you have a Netflix subscription, for example. That's why Netflix pours all of their money into new content, because it's the only way to keep you in there, to create a good product. And then finally, you want your users to grow within your product, and this is the most important. It's not enough to acquire customers. You want those customers to grow with your product. I have a friend who works at Relay 42, and he had a great quote, which is, "I hate the word customer happiness. I love the word customer success." And I asked him, that's the same, right? Customer happiness, customer success? And he said, well, not really, because a successful customer who's unhappy will keep using your product, whereas a happy customer who's unsuccessful will churn. So success is the most important thing. Understand what your users are trying to achieve, what their goal is, and help them achieve that the best possible. Because at the end of the day, competition is a complex thing. Uber competes with Lyft and taxis, but it also competes with walking. It also competes with public transportation. Because Uber solves a problem. Because for every single user, there is a job to be done, sometimes multiple. I buy Nike shoes maybe because I want to run faster, but maybe because I want to be cool. I'm not, that's why I wear Adidas, but still. So this is what's really important, is to really understand the user and what they're trying to achieve. And if you want to understand the user, there's so many things you can do. Observe user behavior. Use tools like Hotjar, VWO, what users do. See how they behave in your product, on your website. Try to understand how they tick, what they like in your product, what they don't like. Gather feedback from them all the time. Talk to your users. What we did at Recruitee and what we're building now at 3D Hubs is Best Friends of Recruitee, which was 20 to 30 companies that loved us. I said yesterday everyone should read an article called 1,000 True Fans by Kevin Kelly. It's about the fact that you shouldn't be building hundreds of thousands of followers. You just need 1,000 people who love you. And that's more in the B2C world, but in the B2B market, it's true. If you have these companies that love you, that evangelize you, invest in them, support them, bring them really close to you, because they will answer all the questions that you want to ask. And that's really useful at the end of the day. So we do this all the time and constantly. We have a thing called Product Board, where people can recommend new features. This is what we did back in the day at Recruitee. And finally, track the hard data. So who here works with data on a daily basis? Very good. Good. Track the data. If you track the data, you're going to see how people behave. Now, one thing is really important. Who here only works with hard data and no soft data? Good. Because hard data tells you what is happening, right? If you look at Mixpanel and you see the behavior, it tells you what is happening. But soft data, qualitative data, tells you how it's happening and why. And you need both types of data in order to validate. So you want this, talk to your users to understand how and why they do things, and really look at whether they're actually doing what they say. So I want to start with the most basic approach to product-driven growth, which is product marketing. Do we have any product marketing managers here? Very nice. Would you be able to define your job in one sentence? Yeah, maybe you, why not? To market your product, fantastic. Really good. Hey, that's fair play. It's a difficult role because it looks very different in a lot of different companies, right? But I think the first most important thing is if you want to communicate around your product, make sure you have a great product. This is ironic because I don't have Facebook, and I think Facebook is a shitty product these days. However, there's a great quote by the VP of Growth of Facebook who says, if you don't have an amazing product, don't bother trying to sell it. I have people coming up to me all the time. They say, I just started my company 1 week ago. We don't have any users. How do I build my growth team? It's like, don't bother with growth if you don't have a product yet. Have product, have a product market fit, and try to make your product the best it can be. Then you can focus on marketing and growth. Because this is something we've always done. At 3D Hubs, we focus on this a lot. We try to build up reviews. We try to build up social proof. We try to create the very best user experience and product you can create. And this is going to be different for every company. We have 2 products. We have our online platform, and then we have the actual services like 3D printing that we offer. And we have to make sure that not only do we create an amazing product, but that we also communicate it in a way that people know that it's amazing. And those are 2 very different things. A lot of companies are very good at one, but not the other. If you're very good at creating an amazing product, but not good at communicating it, you might struggle with customer acquisition. If you have a terrible product, but you're great at communicating it, you're going to end up with a lot of churn. And most importantly, when you're building your product and expanding on it, make sure you test and plan your releases. I'm sorry, I have the most annoying short link here, but if you follow this link, this is Intercom's product release planning. It's a beautiful document where you can plan every step of your release. Because a release isn't just doing a little bit of fire tests within your product team and then hoping it works. A release has to have everything: communications, promotion, maybe a webinar, maybe a video or a motion design feature that shows how it works, tool tips, product descriptions. You want to make sure that when you release a feature, everybody knows about it. Because at Recruitee, we had 82 different features. And we needed people to know about these. And not everyone wanted to use the same feature, so you have to think about, how am I going to target this? How am I going to sell this feature? And make sure that your product communications are strong. You can do webinars. You can do emails. There are so many things you can do beyond just saying, by the way, we have a new feature. And I've worked for a lot of modest companies where we would build something amazing, and then we just focus on the next thing. But if you build something amazing, tell people about it. Make sure that everybody is aware. And also think about whether you're a product or a brand-driven company. And think about this when you're building your website, when you're building your messaging. You could be very product-driven, or you can be very brand-driven. And I'm not saying one is better than the other. In B2C, you're probably more likely to get away with brand-driven. But what we found, we had this branded kind of statement, manufactured without compromise, and people would land on our website and say, what the hell does it mean? So we had to start saying things that are much clearer, online manufacturing. But even then, if you're breaking into a new market where they've never heard of online manufacturing, we have to be even clearer. Get your parts done in days, this kind of stuff. So really think about how you tailor your messaging and your copy when you're promoting your product. Now, getting a little bit deeper, let's talk about user activation. Does everyone here know what user activation is? Right, good, a few of you. It's the third step of this funnel. Now, I personally don't believe that growth marketers have a real impact on retention. It's maybe a more controversial point of view, but I think 90% of what we can do to influence retention actually happens in the activation phase. Because most of the things that improve retention at a bigger company will fall to customer success, it'll fall to a product team, it'll fall to onboarding managers, that really what we can do is we can maximize activation. If you activate your users, they will keep using your product because they will understand the value. And the simplest way to define activation is to say activation is the aha moment, the wow moment. It's that moment when, has anyone ever driven in a Tesla before? It's awesome. That first time you sit in a Tesla and it drives off and you're like, it doesn't make any noise, this is crazy, right? That's a wow moment. The first time you went on Facebook and somebody posted something on their timeline, you were like, ooh, he had avocado for breakfast. Back then, that was a wow moment. The first time you used a touch screen on a phone, that was a wow moment. And then even very non-sexy products still have wow moments. This toilet paper is really soft. It can be a wow moment, right? So the aha moment or the wow moment is incredibly important because you want the user to get this as soon as possible. The sooner the user gets it, the more likely they are to actually keep using your product or sign up in the first place. Excuse me. At 3D Hubs, it's very simple. Engineer lands on the website. Usually an engineer has to spend 4 to 6 weeks negotiating a quote with a factory, probably somewhere in China. Here they upload their design, and within one click, they get an instant quote, which is generated by a machine learning algorithm and is guaranteed to the user. So they get this great aha moment very quickly. We try to bring this in as early as possible. In fact, we try to gear all of our marketing towards getting the users to upload a design. That's what we try to make them do. Not create an account, not contact sales, upload your design, because the sooner you get this wow moment, the more likely you are to keep sticking with us and trying to go through this process. So how do you find your aha moment? I gave a 2-hour talk about this at SaaStock 3 days ago, so I'm not going to go too deep into this. But first, just start by guessing. You built a product to solve a problem. You probably know what your wow moments are. What's special about your product? What are the USPs? List your assumptions. Then you want to track the data. See if your current users are actually using the features that you thought were the wow moment as much as you believe. Then start collecting feedback. Talk to users. Ask them, why is this important? What is the wow moment for you? What was the thing that really got you hooked on our product? Observe their behavior, like I showed before, because users will say a lot of things in an interview, but they will do a lot of other things when you actually observe them. So make sure you balance that. And finally, test and validate. Use those assumptions. Yesterday, we did a 3-hour session on experimentation. Experiment on these ideas and see what works to validate the core assumptions about what your user activation is. Now, one thing, which is a little tactic that we found that works really well, is if you can flip the aha moment. Now, we saw in the pirate funnel that you have awareness, acquisition, and activation. Now, the process of flipping the aha moment is bringing activation before acquisition. In other words, you give the user the activation moment, the wow moment, before they ever sign up to your product. All right? One really good example is Stripe. Who here uses Stripe? Do we have any developers? Any developers? A couple of developers? So Stripe is a product built for developers, right? At the end of the day, the developers are the ones who have to implement it. They're the ones who have to integrate it. So when you go on the Stripe homepage, they actually let you click through and see, with the different coding languages, what the code is going to look like before you ever sign up. And this is what a developer cares about at the end of the day. So this is really powerful, because the developer can actually see what the product is and get that wow moment before they ever implement it. We're going to use a little exercise. I'm going to give you all 2 minutes. And I want you to go to card.co, but before you pull out your phones, I'm just going to give you a few instructions. You're going to land on the page, you're going to click Get Started Now. It's then going to give you a selection of templates. Do not pick a pro template, pick a free template. And I'm going to give you 3 minutes to play around with it. Not 3 minutes, I'm going to give you 1 minute. Let's go 1 minute. To play around and try to build a little bit of a landing page. Go, phones out. Let's do it. If you create something really amazing, send it to me on LinkedIn and I'll give you a prize. Not really. I don't have anything to give. So I'm going to talk through this while you do this. What's very interesting about this product is you click Get Started, you're immediately thrown into the product interface. Now, when you look at Card, you immediately get to use the product before you're ever asked to commit to anything. Again, very important, move the needle. Focus on what moves the needle. Don't edit the footer now. Make a header image, put a headline. Perfect. 25 seconds. You signed up? No, you're not supposed to sign up. You're supposed to click Choose a Starting Point. That's the whole point of the exercise. I'll drop him a message. All right, everyone, phones away. I really need to insist, because otherwise you're all going to be building landing pages while I do the rest of my talk, and I promise you can do this for the rest of the day, so I want to see all the phones away. Basta, done, finito. Away, away. I still see in the corner. Everyone, go, gone, gone, done, done. Who felt like they understood the point of the product? Yeah? Some of you? Yeah, more and more? Some of you still making landing pages? Stop it, seriously. I will come and smack the phone out of your hand. I have no problem with that. Now, the thing with Card is it's not the best landing page creator. It's not. It's made for bloggers who don't know how to code and who want to make their first landing page ever. And what its selling point is that it's easy to use. Now, you all used it on mobile. If you use it on laptop, of course, it's a little bit easier. But the point is, you get to see how the product works before you ever sign up. Number one. Number two, once you've built your beautiful landing page, you lose it if you don't sign up. So they already have you locked into the product before you've ever even decided. And because it's such an easy step-by-step, you get sucked into it very quickly. And this is an example of flipping the wow moment, putting the wow moment first. This is why event marketing is so powerful. Does anyone here do marketing at events, trade shows, and this kind of stuff? Event marketers? There's more than that. Come on. Landing page builders, stop. Cool. When you're at an event, you can show people the product. And you can think about different ways to do this. And when people see the product, they get activated very quickly, and then they're more likely to sign up. At the end of the day, it's very simple. You want to get the user activated as soon and as quickly as possible. And there's all kinds of ways you can do this. You can reduce friction. One exercise we used to do is we'd pinpoint our wow moment. We would count how many steps it took to get there, every click, every scroll, and then we'd see if we could reduce that by 40 to 60%. And you will find that very often there are unnecessary things stopping you from getting to the wow moment. If you can bring that really quickly up, you're going to move a lot quicker. Or you can do live demos, product tours, sandbox environments, videos about your product. Just make sure people see the value before you ask them to commit to anything. And one way that you can do this is user onboarding. Who here has onboarding built into their product? Very nice. User onboarding is one of the most powerful things. Now, yesterday we talked about experimentation. We built this huge onboarding. I said it yesterday. We built it for 6-7 months. And the entire concept of it was developed during 2 weeks. We convinced our bosses to let us go to Bali. We went to Bali. We worked for 2 hours a day, and then we went surfing. No, it's not true. We worked for like 8 hours a day. And we built this entire user onboarding concept, which was then developed over the next 4 months. And when we shipped it, we had a substantial rise in sign-up to paid, about a 30% increase overall, which is huge. And the reason we managed to achieve this is because every single assumption we poured into this process was validated through experiments before. Now, user onboarding is a complex thing. Now, I like to share the original stuff. I'd ask that you don't share it crazy around the world, but it's OK. This was the original sketch of what our onboarding would look like. You can see with the shitty emojis and everything in there. And what we realized was that onboarding sounds like such a simple thing, but it's actually a very complex thing. And we found that 3 things constitute a good user onboarding. Number 1, account setup. This is something that companies skip really fast. But if you have a sales team and if you're B2B, you need to get as much information about the user as possible as soon as you can. And if you want to build an onboarding process that is segmented to the kind of customer you have, so it's not one size fits all, but a segmented user experience, you need to create a good account setup where you're getting the information you need. One example is Recruitee is a recruitment software. Our target audience is recruiters. And what we did was we asked people at the beginning, are you an agency recruiter? Are you a team recruiter? Or are you a solo recruiter? And then, for example, if you said a solo recruiter, we would not include in the onboarding the step of inviting a user, for example. And we would customize the onboarding process to every single step, depending on the data you put in there. So the first thing we did was build a great account setup, where you're not asking shit that you don't need, because there's one problem: don't build friction, make it as simple and easy as possible, but make sure you get all the information you want. So account setup was the first step. And this is really important. Again, the account setup is what allows you to then customize your onboarding for each user. The second thing is feature adoption. And there's 2 different things: feature adoption and feature discovery. And there's a huge difference. Now, if you have a simple product with few features, the 2 might actually be the same. But like I said, Recruitee has 80+ features. It's similar to a CRM. If you use products like ATSs and CRMs, they tend to be very feature-heavy products. Marketing automation software, also very feature-heavy product. So what we did was we gamified the onboarding, and we built this detailed onboarding process where we knew that our user activation is when the customer gets their first candidate into the pipeline of their hiring. So you'd have a Trello board with all the stages of your recruitment. You get a candidate into the pipeline. So that was our goal. Our goal was that everyone who signs up for a free trial at Recruitee should get a candidate in the pipeline within 3 to 4 days. And then we mapped all the data, and we did this for weeks, and we figured out exactly what steps would lead to that. And we started gamifying it with a loading bar. And if you have a really if you play with all the different psychological things in here, you can build a very motivating onboarding process. And what's ironic is you wouldn't think so, but people really care about this. The progress bar is really powerful. It's why back in the day on LinkedIn, it said your profile is 99% complete. It would never go to 100. It's just to keep you editing. It's impossible to get 100 on LinkedIn. It's kind of cruel, really, if you think about it. And then we had to build feature discovery. And there's a big difference because at the beginning, it all seems so simple. We'll beat feature adoption, we'll beat feature discovery. Then you're suddenly in the product, and you're like, wait, this doesn't work, and this doesn't fit with this. And what we found was that feature adoption was built on the user level or the company level, whereas feature discovery was on the feature level. So you discover a feature for the first time, and there'd be little GIFs and toolboxes and tooltips and everything explaining to you exactly how to use it. And I think this is very powerful because at the end of the day, you want your users to understand the whole range of benefits that your product offers, but you also want to make sure that they focus on the benefits that matter the most. And that's why adoption and discovery have to work in parallel. Now, if you work in software, there are some examples outside of software that work as well, but especially in software, a very powerful way to use your product to drive growth is through integrations and partners. Does anyone here have a SaaS product? Very nice. If SaaS product, integrations are king. You're not going to notice it when you're targeting small startups and small SMEs, but as you start going up into the upper ends of the market, and you start having bigger companies, when you start talking to, I don't know, German cement building companies, they don't mess around, and they say, we have this software stack. Does your tool integrate with what we already have? And if it doesn't, you lose that deal. And that's where integrations become very powerful. So with Recruitee, we built a whole set of integrations with different products. So we made sure that Checker, Slack, Zapier. Who here uses Zapier? The duct tape of the internet. Glues everything together, and then everything breaks once your company is more than 50 people. But very powerful, I love it. we then promoted through Zapier the fact that we could connect with 1,000 other tools. And the cool thing here is, the more you're integrated into other people's software stack, the harder it is for them to leave, because you create this stickiness. You lock them in. Right now, a great company that does this amazingly is HubSpot. You're going to have someone from HubSpot speaking directly afterwards. And it has caused me heartache at times, if I'm honest, because if your sales team is using HubSpot CRM, you're pretty much going to have to use HubSpot marketing if you want to do full marketing automation. And that's how they can lock you in, by integrating these products across. Now adding HubSpot support, or support hub, I'm not sure what it's called, they pull you together and they make sure that everything is fully integrated. But if you can do this with other tools and software as well, it gives you a lot of flexibility. And this is where you can really lock in your product and make sure that nobody actually churns. And you can also use this to promote. So we used to do co-marketing with Zapier. We used to do co-marketing with all these different products. So with Zapier is a good example. How Slack is shaking up our recruiting. And there was an article about how the integration between Slack and Recruitee allows you to bring your recruitment to the 21st century, something like that. It was very powerful coming from Zapier, you know? It was a very nice article. A small touch on localization. I know someone's talking about this later. Localization is very important because you're going to find that what works in one country doesn't always work in another. One example. When I'm in the Netherlands, and I was promoting Recruitee, we would talk about AI. AI job predictions, AI candidate screening. That's what people loved. The Dutch love AI. They want to hear AI. And then when we went to France, we have our dashboard is like a Trello-like Kanban. Does everyone know what a Kanban board is? Everyone know Trello? In the Netherlands, no one gives a shit about your Kanban board. It's like standard. If you don't have a Kanban board, it's like, why don't you have a Kanban board? But we went to France, and the French were like, whoa, I love this board. We're like, what the fuck are you talking about? Everyone has this. And it's true, just because this market in France was 15 years behind the market in the Netherlands, the recruitment tech. So they were amazed by some of the simplest features, made my job a lot easier. But this is the important thing, that what different countries are going to care about are going to be completely different. The only things the Germans cared about was the GDPR. And they were like, is your data hosted in Germany? Is your data hosted in Germany? If it is not hosted in Germany, I'm allowed to do that because I'm German. So we found out that not only translation is localization, you have to make sure that you understand what the priorities of each country is, where the market and how developed it is in each country. And that also trickles into your product marketing, because does anyone here speak French? No, you do? Do you have any people who speak French? Does anyone here speak German? Okay. Let's try it like this. How do you say talent acquisition platform in Ukrainian? Right? And our branding was very simple. It was, we're not just an applicant tracking system. We're the next level shit, you know? We're the talent acquisition platform. We are what Salesforce and HubSpot are for recruitment. But then you go to Germany and you're like, how the hell do I say this in German? And then you would find a way to translate it, and then people would come by and say, I have no idea what you do. So we had to switch it to recruitment software, or logiciel de recrutement. We had to start translating and presenting our product in different lights. This is very important, because once you start expanding, I'm always jealous of companies that expand in the US first, because you can scale from a market of maybe 1 million to 20 million people without having to do a single translation or adaptation. But if you're expanding in Europe, you're constantly having to translate stuff. And I don't know if you've ever had to translate product into French, but nothing fits in the damn buttons. Nothing. And that's the thing. At the end of the day, you need to be able to balance that. So localization is such a complex thing, and it is all about product at the end of the day. How you sell your product here is not how you sell your product there. And if you can combine all of this, if you can work this into your onboarding, into user activation processes, if you can work this into your overall marketing strategy, you're going to see a lot of value. Because one of the things, and this is a true story, I started at Recruitee, we were targeting the international market and the Dutch market. And then we started breaking into the German market. And the thing is, what would happen is we would spend hours making the best headline. Powerful software that makes hiring easy. Beautiful. And we'd optimize it, and we'd tweak it, and we'd polish it. We'd give it so much love. And then we'd translate it into German. And that's okay at the beginning, but once the German market was 25% of our revenue, you're suddenly giving 10 times less attention to a market that's a quarter of your revenue. And that's why localization is also incredibly important. That's why you have to build a product that works for all different customers and audiences. Now, the last thing I'm going to touch upon, I wish I could go into this in a lot of detail, but is product referrals. If you can get your users to evangelize you and promote you, that's great. But if you can leverage your product to do that, it's even better. It's something we're building right now at 3D Hubs. We're trying to make it possible for people to share an automated LinkedIn post about how they manufactured something with 3D Hubs that automatically sources maybe a picture of the end result. What we did at Recruitee was quite nice, and you have this with a lot of companies that do this, is like powered by. Powered by Recruitee. It meant that we made the career site. We used to get about 20, 30 customers just from this per month. Just this little link at the bottom. Another thing you can do is incentivizing in-app referrals. Like people always say, yeah, but I don't have time to build an automated referral program and incentives. I'm not sure it's going to work. Well, you can just test it first. Just send people links. Use things like referral candy or viral loops and just promote things. See if referrals works for you. Because at the end of the day, if you have a great product, referrals is going to be a big, big driver of your revenue. It was for us. It was up to 25% of our customers came through referrals at times. So if you want to use a cool tool for this, I would recommend viral loops. There's a lot of tools you can use. Now, at the end of the day, tools can never replace code. Coding this yourself is the best way you can do it. But there's no point spending your developers' resources on building something you don't know is going to work. So in line with experimentation and in the spirit of growth hacking, test it with something like this first, and then ask yourself if you want to scale it fully in your product. But if you use Uber, for example, who here has recommended someone through an app before? Not just Uber, any app. Refer to other people. It's incredibly powerful. When I was working with Pipedrive on behalf of Growth Tribe, we were working on the referral program as well, and we saw how powerful it could be, but also make sure that it's very prominent, that people understand it. That's it. Thank you very much.
All right, now we have some time for question and answer. So if you have a question, just raise your hand, and the volunteer will give the mic.
I was crystal clear. Yeah.
Sure.
Hi, my name is Roman. My
Roman.
question is about the digits. Have you measured about changing activation and acquisition? What is the difference in A/B test, maybe in conversion rate or something like that? Have you some point in digits? What is the difference?
Well, it depends on the company, of course. It really depends. We've worked in cases.
Have examples with digits?
Solid
maybe?
examples?
No?
I can't give you solid examples from my current company because that's confidential information, but we have, when I worked at Growth Tribe, we worked with multiple companies. We've seen up to like 40, 50% uplifts in conversion. But we're talking already one stage past the homepage, right? Overall, it was about a 6% increase in conversion. So you see some pretty significant. But it really varies. It really depends how big your wow moment is, what kind of customer you have, and also how effectively you leverage the sign-up. For example, at 3D Hubs, it works wonders, but we've been doing this since the start, so we don't have the baseline metric. But you see it more and more that companies do this. I can't give you really specific metrics, but there are a lot of studies out there on how it works. Yeah.
Yeah, we have questions there.
Hello, thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
My name is Rafael. So my question is, you placed a lot of channels, SEO, branding, etc. What is your best one? Where you master?
Where do we get the most customers from? Or which channel?
What you master the most?
What I master the most, personally.
Yeah. What is the best now currently for you?
I'm kind of
You
okay.
can lie. That's how I would do it.
I'll be honest. I'm kind of okay at everything, which is why I'm a manager. No, I'm just kidding. I focus mainly on the strategy and connecting the strategy with the individual execution. Things that I started in SEO, customer acquisition, paid ads, content marketing, and copywriting. That was my background. And then I moved into product growth, and then I moved into branding, for me personally. As a company, we focus a lot on SEO, a lot. Because SEO is still the best channel, by the way. People who tell you not have no idea what they're talking about. SEO is high intent, but it's a huge amount of work. And most people say SEO is dead because it's a huge amount of work and they don't want to do it. But it's still the most powerful channel. Everything that's high intent is very powerful.
And then what would be the marketing mix for B2C or B2B? What is your approach?
Marketing mix in terms of skills?
Maybe in terms of channels, SEO or paid ads.
That's really difficult. Depends a lot on where your audience is. Okay, for B2B, intent is the most important thing. Okay, so companies do not impulse buy. So everything that's intent-based, does everyone know the difference between intent-based and disruption-based marketing? Right? So just to explain it very clearly, intent-based means there's a user who has an intention, and that's where you meet them. Like if I'm Googling cheapest running shoes, I'm looking to buy running shoes. My intention is there, so a Google ad will probably be quite effective because it's targeting my intention. Whereas if I'm watching videos of cats on TikTok, I don't know what's on TikTok. I'm assuming it's cats. So if I'm watching videos of cats on TikTok, I don't have TikTok or Instagram or Facebook, but if I were and I was hanging out watching videos and suddenly there's an ad for running shoes, the intent and the relevance of my context isn't there. So it's probably going to be less powerful, but that also reflects in the price. So if you're working with a B2C product, you probably want a combination of high-intent advertising and lower-intent advertising and hope for a halo effect that ties together all your channels. Whereas if you're working at B2B, you're going to find, depending, like what we do is niche, right? We have engineers. Right? Every one of my users is way smarter than me and understands the product better than me. It's a huge problem, day to day. So you have to then really understand, what do engineers read? Where do they hang out? You know, they're probably not on Instagram looking for engineering inspiration, but they are on designnews.com, for example. So you have to then really understand what the channels are. But in my experience, B2B, the intent-based marketing is more important. I'll give you one more. If it's quick.
Should be really quick, like 5 seconds.
Yeah, thanks. Maybe a bit, how do you approach strategy when, for example, I'm a health and fitness company? What is your approach in terms of strategy, analyzing competitors, maybe?
That sounds like another talk, I would
Big
assume.
question.
Do you mind like discussing this after?
Just work with OKRs. Google OKRs, and then we try to connect high level. But afterwards, we can talk about it in detail. I'll be around.
Okay, we have more questions. Perfect.
Hi, thanks. You mentioned something about the, having perfect product or a good product, and after that going to growth. How do you define that? Like, it's still, this is the approach of, experiments and looking for just getting things better. So what's the, how do you define?
How do you define or how do you measure it?
Well, measure, I guess.
Yeah.
Because you're defining it by measuring.
Well, first of all, are people using your product? Are people buying your product? Are you winning deals on the basis of the product? Are you getting positive user feedback on the product? Do you have a good NPS score? Are you getting positive user reviews? Is your activation rate high? Is your retention rate high? Is your churn rate low? There's a lot of metrics that you can measure. How do you define a good product? A good product is a good product. If people are buying it, it's probably good, right?
Yeah. So
or not, but it's good for them. That's what matters.
Correct. So there is a certain point when you like, we have all this, now let's go into the growth approach. Is that the case?
Yeah, I wouldn't say there's a starting or stopping point in terms of when you should start experimenting, but I think there is what you call push and pull effect. Like at the beginning, when you start with your product, you're going to be pushing it down everyone's face all the time, and after a while, suddenly there's going to be a pull. People are going to start coming to you. I think it's actually Sean Ellis or Eric Ries. One of those guys said that eventually when you start feeling that pull effect, you know that your product has traction, and that's when you can start thinking about, how do I constantly optimize it?
I appreciate it. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, we have a question here.
I'll be around all day, by the way, so. And later there's vodka, you can get all the secrets.
Perfect, love it.
Hi, my name is Lisa. I'm working with development market as well. So can you share what marketing channels didn't work for you? So what was the worst marketing things you did for engineers, if you can share?
The worst marketing channel I did for engineers. Well, social ads doesn't really work for us. Social ads direct to sign up doesn't work, but social ads to content and content to email sign up and email sign up to segmented drip and drip to product, that works. That's how you have to think about it, right? We create a whole process of nurturing. So that's probably the main thing. We tried events. Events work very well, but some events work very badly. It just depends if your target audience is there. In general, probably the biggest fuck up I ever had is I accidentally deleted all of our Google ads. In Google Ads Editor. Luckily, I could bring it back, but I was this close to having a heart attack. I thought I was going to be fired in my second week. I did it with a colleague, so we shared the blame. Bing, yeah, I thought it would work. I thought it was a genius idea. Like all these corporates with their Windows computers, they would be using Bing. It didn't work for us. In fact, we couldn't get Bing to work so much that our account manager said, yeah, just stop using Bing, which was quite funny. Yeah.
Okay, I think we're done with the questions. Thank you so much, and a round of applause for Ferdinand.
Thank you.